Hi guys, today I want to talk about how healing your relationship with food is not always just about food. Now, you might find this extremely relatable if you have an almond parent or if you've experienced just like a partner or a friend who's been very critical about what you eat or your exercise or how you look like. When you're a kid, your body image should not be your main priority. Your priority should be making friends, watching your cartoons, playing like a sport or something, but it shouldn't really be about how you look like or what you're eating. I did some journaling and I realized I had this visualization about how my life felt like at a certain point. There's an image and there's a table. I walk into the image and my head is down. Really, the only thing that happens in the visualization is I come in to eat and then I leave. And then I just come back in to eat again and then I just leave. So after reflecting, I realized it's not only something that's on my mind, but that's basically how it felt for me growing up. I genuinely felt the whole purpose of my life was to follow a diet. A part of me just wished to have the ability to just not eat anything for the rest of my life. Every time I have a craving, I feel like the worst person ever. I don't care about my health. I don't care how I look like. I don't care about my weight. When you're able to identify a limiting belief, it might be I'm not good enough or I'm never gonna do anything good in my life. It's really hard for us to start thinking that out of nowhere. It usually comes from somewhere. Like we learned that from someone. Maybe it was your parents, maybe it was your siblings, maybe it was like a teacher at school. For my case, it was my dad. So whenever I find a limiting belief, it's easy for me to identify where it comes from. In this case, I don't remember my dad telling me I don't want it bad enough. I want to say it's a fair assumption. He made me feel that way. Now, what does I don't want it bad enough mean? If I wanted it bad enough, it would have been done by now. If I wanted it bad enough, I wouldn't be struggling to lose weight. From my perspective, it's basically like, okay, this is how your life is going to be from now on. You're going to be in a very strict diet with food that you don't like, and you don't get to choose if you want to be in the diet or not. You just are. Now you're gonna have to exercise every single day, no excuses. My life just suddenly changed. I still remember the most enjoyable meal from the diet, which was beef with 15 french fries. I am not joking. 15 french fries. He even paid my nanny a little bit extra just to monitor what I was eating. I was in restriction. I don't know if you guys have ever heard about the binge restriction cycle, but basically, when you're in a restriction period and then you come across food, you end up binging. Binging looks different for everyone. For someone, it might mean eating a whole cake. For another person, it might mean eating 2 apples. It's not exactly about what you eat, but more about the impulse that you have when you're eating. After binging, you suddenly get hit with guilt and shame, and you made the decision to never do that again. So you fall again into restriction, and it basically just goes on and on and on. So as a kid who obviously didn't want to be in a diet, and as just a human being who was in a long period of restriction, I had cravings. When you're in restriction, you're gonna have cravings. And my dad would make me feel like I was the worst person in the world for just having cravings. He made it extremely clear that if I wanted to be skinny bad enough, I wouldn't be having cravings. And if I'm gonna be honest with you, I didn't want it bad enough. As I said, as an 11-year-old, my priority was not losing weight. My priority was not following a diet. I just wanted my dad to be okay with me. I wanted my dad's love, his acceptance, his approval. And I wasn't really getting that, not with the diet. Every single day started revolving around food. My dad had this thing where if I didn't follow the diet or if I had a craving or if I didn't exercise, he would get mad at me. He would stop talking to me. He would ignore me. And as a child, your parents' attention feels like love. So my dad started ignoring me and punishing me with his silence. As a kid, I learned the only way for my dad to be okay with me and the only way for my dad to love me and be there for me, he's only going to do that if I lose weight, if I follow the diet, if I exercise every day. So no, I didn't want it bad enough. I didn't want to lose weight bad enough. I didn't want to follow the diet bad enough as he wanted me to. What I wanted was for him to love me, for him to take care of me, for him to be okay with me, for him to accept me. I wanted his love so bad, I started eating ice for dinner. And whenever I ended up binging, I started throwing up everything I ate. I started over exercising. Like, I had this whole thing in my journal called Pay the Consequences, and I would lay out this huge workout, and the rules were simple. If I ate something that wasn't part of the diet, I had to do that workout. And if I didn't do that workout before the next day, I would have to skip breakfast and then do the workout twice. But the section was literally named Pay the Consequences. The consequences of eating or not following the diet. Because that's how bad I needed to motivate myself to actually follow the diet. I was desperate for my dad's love. I was desperate for his approval. So I would literally punish my body. I don't know for how long I did this, but I do know that when my mom took me to another doctor, I was literally underweight. I was 12 years old and I was underweight. Now, my dad being a doctor, how come he didn't realize I'm literally killing myself every single day, skipping meals, throwing up, over exercising, telling myself that I need to do better? So, why is my dad telling me that I'm not doing enough? And I'm gonna be honest, for the past 12 years, I've been feeling like I'm not trying hard enough, that I'm not disciplined, that I don't want to be healthy enough. It's so conflicting because I was literally killing myself, but that still wasn't enough for my dad. So if my all is not enough, then what is enough? I had to conclude that my dad's standards were literally impossible. I genuinely believe that the only way my dad would have been satisfied at that moment was if I just shut my mouth and never took another bite for the rest of my life. But honestly, if I would have done that, or if I were to do that, I would be dead. You need food to survive. Food is literally fuel. Now, I've been feeling that I don't want it bad enough, and it's always about food. Whenever I have a craving, I don't want it bad enough. Whenever I skip or miss a workout, I don't want it bad enough. Whenever I eat something that's not in the diet, I don't want it bad enough. It's so exhausting because I tend to have a food noise, and almost every single thought I have about food triggers that thought. So, obviously, as I'm healing my relationship with food, I realize I need to heal this limiting belief. Because it's not that I don't want it bad enough, I do want it bad enough, and I proved it. These standards were just really high and really unrealistic. Satisfying them would be extremely harmful to myself. In order for me to actually change that belief, I need to think more about my dad and a little bit less about food. I was trying to manage my relationship with my dad through food. Me healing my relationship with my dad is the same as me healing my relationship with food, and vice versa. So, in my journal, I wrote the following: My dad may never recognize all my effort, but I am witness of what I did. I am witness that I did want it bad enough. I am witness that I was disciplined. I am witness that I was trying, and me acknowledging all of my effort is all I need. But even if he doesn't acknowledge it, it does not make it false. He literally gave me his burden out of nowhere, and then he punished me for struggling with it. He punished me for not knowing how to handle this huge change of lifestyle. I was never lazy or undisciplined. I literally did everything that I could, and I did it for love. But love is not something that I should have to earn, especially not from my own father. My worth does not come and will never come from my weight. My value comes from God. And I feel like this is such an important aspect if you believe in God, because God does not change. God is the same as he was yesterday, as he was 100 years ago, and as he will be in 1,000 years from now. And he has value at all times. So my value comes from God, meaning that my value cannot be changed. One day I won't be more valuable than the next or than the day before. So just that belief helps me center myself, helps me ground myself, and helps me meditate and find peace, because my value is not something that will change, and it's not something that depends on anything else. Now, if you're not a Christian or if you don't follow God, your value comes from yourself. Your value comes from who you are and what you believe in yourself. Because whether you have 1,000 friends or 0 friends, you are still a valuable person. Whether you have the most loving parents or not, you're still a valuable person. So your value does not change. And honestly, if you're comparing my approval to his approval, my approval is more valuable to myself because it comes from me. And if he didn't acknowledge or recognize the effort that I did when I was a child, I do have to say, your parents or honestly, for that matter, just about anybody, they can only give what they have. They can only share what they know. And my dad didn't know how to recognize people, didn't know how to acknowledge people, didn't know how to congratulate people because that is something he probably never experienced himself. But that doesn't matter because that is his life. It is my life, and I am going to acknowledge myself. I am going to recognize myself, and that is what matters. Before I wrote that entry, I identified as someone who just didn't want it bad enough, and that was always a reason to feel disappointed about myself. But after reflecting and journaling, I realized I am not that person. I am a person who was disciplined. I am a person who is disciplined, who's capable of doing absolutely anything, even going to the extremes. But for now, I decide to be a person with self compassion. I decide to be a person who's taking things slow. And I decide to be the person who takes her own time without anybody pressuring her. So, this episode probably feels like a whole journey because it's from identifying where this belief comes from, breaking down the belief, and then some affirmations that I gave myself to break down the belief and just build a new one. I hope you can see how my relationship with my dad shaped my relationship with food, and how the belief that always comes up through food is actually belief that was given to me by my dad. And being able to let that go is a step into forgiving my dad and healing my relationship with my dad, as well as healing my relationship with food. If you experience an almond parent, I want to give you the apology that you might never receive from them. I know that it sucks. I experienced one and it's exhausting, it's emotionally draining, it's just too much. Thank you so much for listening to this episode. I encourage you to check out the other episodes and stay tuned for next week's episode. God bless you.